Hey everybody, welcome back to the Moscow Mules. I'm Shay Bowes and I'm joined again, of course, by Augie, the maestro, the man that conducts the orchestra of my madness and tries to produce a concerto which illustrates the reality of just how crazy the world's become. Now, talking about a crazy world, last week we were talking from the UK about how determined they are, it seems, the elites, to screw the pooch and drive us towards World War III. But it seems they failed yet again. And guess what? They've decided that they've both won. That's right, Iran and the US have claimed victory over each other. Kind of difficult thing to do. And it's probably got something to do with the politicians who are in charge, not the current ones. Right, Augie? It's all about the past. It's all about, you know, someone else's fault, let's say.
Oh yeah, and there has been a lot of faults there, Che. Within 20 years of the US adventures in the Middle East, they have killed an estimate of 900,000 people and this whole adventure has cost the US up to $5.8 trillion.
Wow, $5.8 trillion. I wonder what you could do with that in some of the whole neighborhoods we've been looking at in the United States, Baltimore, Oakland. It's pretty grim over there. But anyway, look, as we said, Augie, right, it's always someone else's fault. Now let's have a listen to Mr. Vance explaining that the show has all been inherited. It's absolutely nothing to do with anybody here. Look over there. It's all in the past. Run the video, Augie.
I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives.
It's always, that's all it took. It was that simple. Back then, we had dumb presidents. Now we got someone who knows what they're doing. Right, Augie? I mean, you couldn't make this shit up. And you might think that all sounds a bit insane, right? It couldn't be our fault. It's always somebody else's fault. But something else that's insane, something that Augie and I have kind of recognized, it might be a bit of fun tweeting that Armageddon's incoming. It might be a bit of fun watching Elon and the Big Don, having a knife fight with each other about who's going to take over the USA, start the America Party. But in reality, it does signify, right, Augie, a kind of a degradation in the political etiquette. The idea that people could actually sit in a room and decide something. No, why the f would you bother? Just get onto Twitter, get onto Truth Social, and just basically bomb everybody with information constantly, 24 hours a day. And it seems the Big Don's always got something to say, and he's also got something to say about Iran. Bombing Iran, right, Augie?
It's a very nice tune.
Yeah, run the video. So bad.
Just can you imagine, Jay, how absurd this whole thing is?
It's just insane. Went to a mosque, gonna throw some rocks. He actually shared this, Augie, right?
Yes, the President of the United States has actually posted a song about bombing Iran for millions of people to see. This is the political culture of America 2025.
I wonder what old Abraham Lincoln would think of it all.
Just imagine for a second if Putin has posted something like a song about bombing Ukraine on Russian social media. What would have happened?
Yeah. But it doesn't apply. It's an a la carte insanity. The Big Don gets to do and say whatever the he wants. Now, while the Big Don was, basically posting memes about bombing Iran, think about that, right? He seemed pretty happy. He had claimed this complete annihilation, the complete destruction of Iran's nuclear program. Some other people think different, Don. But he was happy, but one person wasn't. The perennial Nosferatu impersonator, Mr. Lindsey Graham, the not gay man who doesn't use rent boys services, who many rent boys haven't come forward, male prostitutes, to testify that they've been in Lindsay's house. The conservative Lindsey Graham, who's not gay. He was absolutely pissed off. He was angry. Imagine that World War III didn't start. He's also trying to levy between 250% and 500% sanctions on Russia right now. He's a man that just seems to be like a Dracula of war. He just wants to suck the blood out of every conflict. Augie, what the actual Americans, normal Americans, think about bombing Iran, starting World War III via Iran? What do they think about it?
Well, I can tell for sure, Che, that most Americans are not blood-sucking vampires that revel in endless bloodshed. Actually, most Americans, according to the latest poll, disapprove of the strikes. 56% think that Trump's decision to use force in Iran was not a right idea, and 6 in 10 Americans are worried that the strikes will actually increase the Iranian threat to the Americans.
And remember, the Big Don was elected on the basis of no more foreign wars, right? Remember that? Remember that old chestnut? Yeah. Let's have a listen to Lindsay, looking pretty pissed off about the idea that there might be peace. Imagine, think about that. Roll the video, Augie.
As to the ceasefire, it's a good thing if it leads to peace. It will be a step backward if it leads to an ability of Iran to rearm and retool. And the head atomic scientist in Iran, the one who's still alive, said they're going right back to enrichment. So I'm not so sure we've solved the problem yet.
You see, Che, the world is not destroyed yet, so the problem is not solved for Lindsay.
What is he going to do when, you know, he actually causes World War III and he's like, he turned into a piece of bacon? He'd probably be in a bunker. Nice pink couches. I'd say it's going to be beautifully done. Kind of Liberace style piano, nice chandelier, and plenty of boys down there, purely to work on the domestic side. And of course, it would all make you wonder, wouldn't it? What wouldn't the United States do, Augie, for Israel? What would they not do? You know, Richard Nixon very famously talked about the Jewish lobby in the United States. And he basically said, look, I understand that Jewish people in the US want to help Israel. They see the fate of Israel as inexorably tied to the fate of the United States. So do the Irish, so do the Dutch, so do the Germans. But the Jewish lobby, Richard Nixon said this, president, check it out, is exceptionally powerful. So you got to say no. Now and then you got to say no. I'm going to do best. He did it with Egypt. He said, I want good relations with Egypt. I want to have good relations with Israel. Now, is the Big Don going to say that? Come on, give me a break. Absolutely not. And that was reflected by a State Department spokeswoman, right, Augie, who came out and basically said, he said, we are the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America. God bless America. We are the greatest. It's probably just a little bit less great than Israel. Yeah, I you not. Run the video, Augie.
The pride of being able to be here and do work that facilitates making things better for people, and in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel.
There you go, Che.
Hell, she said the quiet part out loud. And maybe the old US of A, which prides itself on sort of humanity, right, Augie? The idea that all men are created equal, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Now, you got to say, maybe, Uggs, they're taking on a bit too much of the Israeli idea of how to treat prisoners. You know, when the Israeli prisons are full of literally thousands and thousands of Palestinians without a trial, in a lot of cases, they're children, women, kept in brutal conditions. They're prisoners. When the Hamas guys take some Israelis, they're hostages, right? Now, let's have a look at just how the US may be sort of listening a little bit and watching. I kind of like what they're doing. I like what they're doing over there with this kind of treatment of prisoners, this dehumanization. And we're going to open an island. We're going to surround it with alligators, yeah. And we're going to kind of giggle and laugh at the idea that if they try to escape, they could be eaten alive by reptiles. Welcome to 2025. No Run the video, Augie.
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If the snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Look like this.
What?
And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%.
Now, don't forget, Augie, you remember how the Americans went on about the Uyghurs in China being treated terribly by being given, jobs in factories and fed and kept in very clean housing? That was an outrage, okay? But you can put people, basically you can do a human safari with alligators, with immigrants, and that's completely all right, right? And of course, we don't want to be, too mean to the Big Don. And me and Augie, we kind of love him. We love him here. We just think he might have lost his way a bit. getting bad advice. Someone's got in his ear, you know, the globalist elite, see what's happening, you know, the old APAC boys, you know, we've got to be realists as well. And he's been very good in some spaces. He's still talking to Mr. Putin. He's still slapping down the Europeans now and then, and he's still completely unpredictable, which makes him great to watch. He makes great TV. Something else he's done that me and Augie are very happy with, Augie, is he's nailed the coffin shut on USAID, right, Augie? And USAID were a monster, an absolute monster. They had tentacles everywhere. We've done a lot of work here on the Moscow Mules on USAID. We've talked about it a lot. We've done some documentaries about it. Check it out, War in the Shadows. You can get it on RT.com. Augie, USAID are no more. Tell us more.
Well, it's true. The USAID is no more after having spent up to $14 billion back in 2023 and owning like 90% of the Ukrainian media. But do you think, Che, the USAID is gone forever? I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people in America who want to bring it back as soon as possible.
Well, yeah, I think it's just on ice. I think, pardon the pun, it's just on ice. Like a lot of Mexicans. I think what's going to happen is, as soon as the Democrats manage to destroy Project Dawn, which they will do, and who knows, maybe even Elon will help them do it by, you know, by accident, maybe with his America Party. I think they're going to, you know, re-energize. The Frankenstein will re-emerge from the tomb. USAID will then maraud its way across Africa, Asia, screwing up and doing a bit of regime change, as they say. Yeah, Augie?
Yeah, well, at least for now, Che, we have some videos of American elites crying their eyes out for the USAID funding.
That's correct. Chuck Schumer, one of my favorites. Poor old Chuck got a bit emotional when he heard that USAID was gone. Run the video, Augie.
We also know this is just the beginning. If Doge attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service, or the IRS, or even the Social Security Administration.
Why the fuck would they attack the Postal Service?
First, they came for the USAID workers. Next, they came for the postal workers.
What?
Does this make any sense to you, Che?
Yeah, well, you know, I think, you know, Chuck is basically losing his mind, like many senior moment people in the US government. Of course, while the circus continues its tour of the United States and you continue to pay for it, poor old America, guess what happened in Europe? Yes, in Belgium, a country that Augie and I have visited as well, by the way, and totally enjoyed it. You might see that soon. They were hosting the NATO summit, blah, blah, blah. Yes, Mark Rutte, the failed politician, the dim-wit in chief, he was having a little get-together for his daddy, Mr. Trump. Yeah, Mr. Trump turned up. Everybody was seeing who could crawl the lowest under the limbo bar of self-deprecation towards the Fuhrer, being the Big Don. But let's have a look at one person in particular who seems to have caught, Augie, a severe case of Zelensky-itis at the summit. Now, of course, all the NATO leaders were there, all the people who are in the alliance, and of course, who else was there? The narco Fuhrer wearing a lovely little suit, which isn't exactly a suit, which is kind of like, I will kind of wear a suit, but I won't wear a suit. I'll wear kind of a black Mao outfit, just to kind of say I'm wearing a suit, but I'm not kind of wearing a suit. Yeah, let's have a look at Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, who seems to definitely, Augie, as I say, caught a significant case of Zelensky-itis. Run the video.
Si conclude un vertice importante, tanto chiaramente per gli impegni.
Un messaggio molto importante, mi pare di avervi detto tutto.
Non c'è stata la reazione di Trump.
Su una politica espansiva.
Come faremo a produrre proiettili, carri armati?
Non mi pare che risolviamo grandi problemi.
What the
voluto fare come la Spagna, no? Presidente, mi scusi, con il Presidente Trump è riuscito a parlare ieri sera anche del tema dazi. Chiude al 10% i dazi. Ieri ha detto che va bene così, è d'accordo?
Impegnatissimo per ottenere questo risultato.
Okay, we're pretty sure that all European elites are taking drugs by now, right, Che?
Come on, it was definitely a survey. You had a tissue on the train, right, Augie? Remember all Macrolian? Just a tissue.
Just a tissue, guys. Just a tissue.
Just a tissue of lies. And speaking about Mr. Mark Rutte, a terribly, terribly unpopular politician in the Netherlands. I know a few people there, and they say he's the most repellently, repulsively boring, unpleasant, unpopular politician that's ever come out of that country. It's kind of a boring country in itself, quite flat, quite, featureless, kind of like him. And that probably speaks a lot to how he betrays himself. He gave out recently about Mr. Dmitriev, who is a renowned Russian historian, who was leading the negotiations in Ukraine, with the Ukrainians about the body swaps and with the prisoner releases. Now, interestingly, he also decided to have a go at Mr. Lavrov, saying that he'd been around forever, since the time of the pharaohs. When you're a diplomat, and you're a world-renowned diplomat like Sergei Lavrov. Sergei Lavrov started his diplomatic career in Sri Lanka. He speaks Sinhalese. That was 50 years ago. The man has worked across the board. He's a world-renowned and respected diplomat. But Rutte, the dim-witted chief of NATO, the unelected clown prince of the gutless alliance, has decided to attack him and to diminish him because he's been around so long and he has so much experience. That's supposedly a bad thing in diplomacy. What a retard you are, Mr. Rutte. Run the video, Augie.
And then to Lavrov, I mean, he is foreign minister of Russia, I think, since the birth of Jesus Christ. And since then, anything useful came out of his mouth. So let's not pay too much attention to Mr. Lavrov.
It's remarkable ignorance, right? And this is from a man who sat in the room with Donald Trump while Donald Trump told him he was going to basically annex Greenland and take over Canada, both of which are NATO members. And of course, it's the same guy that crawled as low as he could get. He did the limbo of self-deprecation, down, crawling close to the floor like a little wood lice, like a little beetle towards his daddy. Yeah, he called Trump the daddy, and of course this went viral. The guy is really creepy. He's kind of a snake, you know, gutless rat. Perfect head for an organization which acts like a gutless rat, kicking the shit out of people in sandals, bombing civilians in Serbia, murdering Chinese diplomats in the Chinese embassy, right, Augie? NATO, you gotta love them. Run the video, Augie.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
you have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
I think we have to join the house.
When you actually look at the reality around this 5% increase, it's all a bit of a scam, right? Because by the time the countries who say they're going to sign up, yes, Daddy, we're going to spend 5% of our GDP on a war with Russia, which is all making up bullshit in the first place. By the time anybody actually gets that done, he might not even be president, right, Augie? You've done a bit of digging into the reality around this stuff.
Exactly, Che. You see, the trick here is very simple. The spending should reach 5% only by 2035, and the first review of the progress made on this funding increase is only going to happen in 2029. You know what else is going to happen in 2029, Che?
Let me guess. Trump won't be president anymore, probably.
Exactly. So you know what? They will just cheat him.
It's a big scam, right?
Perfect scam.
It's NATO, after all. So leaving Belgium, let's go to the actual heartland of freedom, democracy, liberty, a freedom of movement. It's not an open-air prison. You can come and go as you please, right, Augie? Ukraine, yeah. And let's have a listen to a well-known academic who's actually talking about comparing, Hitler to Vladimir Putin, which is very popular in the Western media. Putin is Hitler, Putler, all this ridiculous drivel. Don't forget, Vladimir Putin's own family personally suffered at the hands of the Nazis in Leningrad. His own brother, who was born before Vladimir Putin was born, died of diphtheria. So it's an idiotic, ridiculous, retarded, ignorant idea that you could compare these two men. But nonetheless, the Ukrainians are doing it. And it's not just anybody. It's not just some dude on the street with a bottle of vodka like a lot of people in Kiev. It's an academic. It's the man in charge of how Ukrainians think of themselves, the Office of Ukrainian Identity, if you like. Basically, he's a gauleiter of information. This is absolutely insane. He's suggesting that you can't compare Putin to Hitler, not because it's ridiculous, but because Hitler was so much nicer. Right, Augie? Basically. I mean, I can't even say this without laughing. He's basically saying you can't compare Putin to Hitler. You just can't do it. And you're going, wow, some common sense in Ukraine. Because Hitler was so much nicer. Run the video, Augie.
Here, people often like to compare Hitler with Putin. But you know, how can you compare a person who had a German education, who was an artist, who was raised on philosophy and, in fact, the high culture of Germany, right? And compare him to this jerk? You can't. These are not people you can compare. How can you compare the German people, who are raised on law, on obedience, with a Protestant or Catholic, Christian, a strong Christian ethic, to a people who live out there in the East, with those goblins? And they have their own name, Russians, of course. It's like you started calling them orcs. Orcs. No, not orcs. Orcs are former elves. These are real Russians. You can't compare them in substance. The mechanism is similar.
So, Augie, remind the viewers, okay, that this is the country that you're going to die for, because Ukraine was only really the battering ram. They failed in Ukraine, so Ukraine is losing. The Russians are taking loads of territory. The Russians are winning the war. Okay, everybody knows that. The Americans know it. The Brits know it. The Europeans know it. The Ukrainians know it. They're losing war. So the front line's going to move now. It's going to move to Europe, and this is the country you're going to die for. Tell us what the German Minister of Defense is prattling on about. Mein Liebling.
That's right, Shay. Actually, just a few days ago, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said that mandatory military service, which was scrapped in 2011, should be reinstated back in Germany. I hope, guys, you're ready to get drafted for a war for a country that actually thinks that Hitler was the great artist.
So I hear you all out there in Internetsville and television land asking, how exactly could a tiny elite manipulate vast populations in the United States, Great Britain, Europe, Germany, France, these great countries? Remember, we all thought that the Germans were the center of equilibrium, free thought and reason. Remember Mr. Goethe, all the boys, yeah? Look what happened when Uncle Adolf took power. We're in a kind of a vacuum like that right now, because we're in a post-truth reality. It doesn't really matter what the truth is, it's what the truth you're told is. If you dissent from that truth, just ask the Romanians, the Hungarians. If you don't want to sanction Russia, if you don't want to burden your people with absolute tons of debt, misery and immigration, you're the bad guy, regardless of what the truth is. Let's have a look at what's happening in France, a country which is basically falling apart. It's tearing itself apart because of idiotic immigration policy, idiotic economic policy, and generally this kind of malaise politically with people like Macron, who's even getting kicked out of him by his wife. Let's face it, it's not a good look. Let's have a look at what happened. I think, Augie, it was a music festival where someone went around, a few gentlemen went around with hypodermic needles, injecting young girls, 140 of them, with an unknown substance. I mean, what the fuck is going on? Augie, run the video.
Christ. Jesus Christ, Bob. What the f is that, man? This is wild shit.
Oh, yeah. Currently 7 in the morning. The Republic, man, am still outside.
Oh. So when you look at a country that's at that level of decay and at that level of division societally, right? It's easy to manipulate opinions, right, Augie? It's easy to tell people that there's a bad guy over the wall. You can't see him yet. You don't know where he is, but he's working behind the scenes. He's to blame for everything. It's a bogeyman scenario, right?
Right, Che. And there's always one person and one country to blame for all your problems, dear Europeans. For your electrical networks being garbage, for immigrants flooding your cities, for your economies faltering, there's only one person and one country to blame.
I can't imagine who. Run the video.
Das ist ein Krieg nicht nur gegen die Ukraine, es ist ein Krieg gegen uns. Wir werden ausspioniert, wir haben Sabotageakte, wir haben hier massive Falschmeldungen. Es werden hier
Falschmeldungen
und andere Kanäle
systematically misinformation von Snipenhuren.
Künstlicher Intelligenz zusammen. Das sind alles Dinge, die wir nennen das.
Das ist alles Dinge, die der Hybriden war.
Greift uns heute schon an.
Ja. Das ist der Hybridenkrieg. Ja, liebe Eltern.
Gefunden hat in in den jüngsten Tagen. Die Spuren führen fast allesamt nach Russland. Deswegen müssen wir uns dagegen wehren.
Feels nice to be this all-powerful.
Remind me, Augie, these are the guys who rolled across Europe nailing babies to the doors of barns, right? Just
well, or their grandfathers.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of another Moscow Mules. We've enjoyed making it. We hope you've enjoyed watching it. Augie and I spot a little pattern, and we're good at that, Augie being a bit autistic. And the pattern we spot is that the elites seem to think they can say one thing on a Monday, another thing on a Tuesday, another thing on a Wednesday, and you're going to be so retardedly stupid that you're not going to spot that they're talking absolute. And it's kind of our job here in the Moscow Mules, in real media, to point that out to you. Not in the legacy media, where they just cover that shit up and come up with another fantasy story to make you forget the lie that was told on a Monday, on a Wednesday. We're here to tell you that maybe you're being bullshitted, and maybe your money's been stolen, and maybe it's all about creating war and fear to make sure you keep coughing up the dough until the day you go in the hole, and then someone comes on and tells you, hey, you know what? We were wrong. Maybe just a little bit. So we'll be here same time, same place next week, making sure that you know you're being screwed over. Yeah, sorry. We do our best. We'll see you then.